welcome back for another episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I am talking to Jesse Lyon. Who is Jesse? Jesse is a renowned dream interpreter and a clinical hypnotherapist and a counselor. And today I am super excited to talk to him. If you have not been on his TikTok, he has 2.5 million followers. Such an incredible platform in terms of just everything you share. So, Jesse, without further ado, welcome to the Bright Side of Life. How are you doing today?
Melissa, thank you so much. I am great. It is unfortunately a Monday, but you know what? We're pushing through. It's okay.
We are pushed. That is a very, yeah. I already said today has been testing my
Oh boy.
patience, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I kind of want to start. So I'm going to tell my listeners what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about dreams. We're going to be talking about dreams in terms of kind of, understanding and maybe analyzing trauma, and why you have those dreams. And it's just going to be a fun, well, it should be a fun time. Maybe you'll get answers about what your dreams mean and not like that. But hey, we're here to learn.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's been I mean, one of the reasons that Mondays are so busy is I've got my hands in a bunch of things. So like you mentioned, TikTok and social media is just one part of what I do. Like, it's the start of this fall semester here. We're kind of heading into spring semester with all the universities that I work with. So interviewing new counselors and adding them to the practice. And so life is busy. I mean, I also have 8-month-old today, actually, his little birthday,
Oh
super cute. He's 8 months old today. And oh man, he's still waking dad up. That's for sure. But man,
no.
I wouldn't change anything about it. I
That's
I really
awesome.
really appreciate the life that, I've gotten to be a part of. And there's challenges for sure, as there are with anybody, but I try and look at those challenges as like opportunities to learn more about what it means to be here. So
Yeah.
it's been cool.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a perfect segue into where I want to start. I want to start with how you came to where you are today in terms of being interested in dreams and hypnotherapy. Did you yourself kind of have some trauma that you're like, I got some ish to work on and now I want to help some other people?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that story could take a while. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
I lived a pretty different life than most people. So I was actually homeschooled from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Okay.
So I didn't get a lot of time out with friends and like in culture and social and stuff. And so it's kind of odd and really ironic that I'm so popular on social media now because I just, I went to school at home,
Right.
which made it kind of weird when I sort of got into other things and social media type of stuff. But at the same time, I really appreciate the education that I got because, both my parents are engineers. And so I got an education in high school that I see now that a lot of others in high school didn't get. I was pushed really
Mm,
hard,
okay.
and education was always seen as paramount,
Okay.
hugely important. And so it was really popular in the homeschool community to start college early. So I actually started college in 11th grade and graduated with my bachelor's degree at 19 and immediately interviewed for grad school. And so they, I got the privilege of talking with one of the professors that I'm pretty close with now afterwards, and they're like, Jesse, we weren't going to let you in. I was like, really? They're like, yeah, you were 19 interviewing to be a counselor and go through the master's program. They're like, you didn't have any life experience. I was like, yeah, I know. I know I did. And they're like, but we sat down and we talked about you, Jesse, and we said, look at what he's done. If he has dedicated himself and worked so hard to get here, he'll continue to work hard and grow. And we wanted to give you that opportunity. And oh my gosh, am I ever grateful that I got that opportunity to be a counselor. So my heart number one is as a mental health counselor. So I own a
Okay.
practice in Central Florida
Okay.
called Lyon Counseling. The last name is pretty catchy, so I stuck with it. We've got 2 locations, 3 offices, and a whole team of therapists who work for me and do just wonderful work, especially outreaching to the homeless population here in Central Florida too. So um, that's a lot of where I'm at. But my dream journey really started during COVID. I've been teaching and educating people about hypnotherapy and specifically hypnotherapy for trauma for
Okay.
years. I mean, really, I jumped right into that while I was still in grad school.
Okay.
Um, and hypnotherapy is just a way of communicating with the unconscious mind. Coincidentally, that's the same thing that happens when you dream. Your unconscious mind, without filter, just communicates to you and processes the day that you've experienced. And so here's everyone having some very uncomfortable and unsettling dreams during COVID. And they were turning to me, like just in my everyday practice counselor life, asking me what their dreams meant. So I was like, whoa, there's a real need here for answers. So, I started making some content online and oh boy, did that just take off. So I was like, wow, okay, there's a real way that I can help people and really give them some insight into what's going on inside their mind. And really primary goal for me is to help them not be so much in tension and conflict with themselves and really appreciate what their dreams are trying to say.
Mm, I love that. Okay, well, I have a lot to say. So first of all, we have to back up. How old are you? Are you like literally 22?
No, I've been in practice now. I've been in the psychology field for over 10 years.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
30.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Not that it matters. I just had a 19-year-old that has his own coaching business for 2 years last week, and I'm like, "You guys are freaking blowing my mind here. This makes me so happy."
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. So I'm 30 now, but
Okay.
that's been it's been my journey.
Awesome. And see, just from like seeing your, and I knew that you were also obviously a counselor, but I knew that you had a practice. I just didn't know the
Mhm.
whole backstory of the homeschool and freaking grad school and everything else. That's incredible.
Thank you. It's for me it was very much an obvious path. It was like, well, these are the next steps. I always knew I wanted to be in counselor and psychology. We could talk about that journey if you want, but
Yeah.
it was
What,
just like I know these are the next steps, and so
yeah.
yeah.
What made you so interested in mental health? Like, because for me, I had to like really struggle. Like, I've lost both of my parents by the age of 35 and like
Mm.
some hard things that like really tested me. And so, why did that become such a fascinating topic for you in terms of mental health?
Yeah, after being asked that question many times, I've come to understand that I really do kind of process the world and life differently than most people. I've really come to appreciate that my brain just thinks differently, and
Mhm.
it's no better or worse than anybody else. I just realized that my answer is very different. So I'm glad to share it because when I was like 15 or 16, I was going through some depression times, some anxiety, and so I saw a counselor, and that was great. But really, I was very into philosophy. I
Mm.
found an escape from some of the things that I was going through by reading like some really intense philosophy books. And so that was what really excited and energized my mind. And so up until that point, as I'm reading philosophy, Sigmund Freud and Darwin, they all believed that what motivated a human being was a will to live. And they're like, at our basic core, human beings are driven by survival. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so to me that just didn't make sense though, right? Because it's like, well, we struggle with topics of suicide and self-harm and self-sabotage and things like that. We get into relationships that aren't good for us. So it's like if our motivation is to survive, then why do we get into these situations over and over again? And so
Mm.
continuing my just sort of self-fueled journey into understanding and philosophy, along came Friedrich Nietzsche. And I'm reading Nietzsche and he says, no, no, no. You've got it wrong. Human beings are driven by a will to power. I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And it was at that moment that I really understood like, okay, people choose what they're going to do. Cause I'm 16 at this point, right? I got to
Mhm.
choose something to do with my life. And so I'm like, okay, people are driven by power. Like economists are driven, accountants are driven by the power of money. Engineers are driven by the power of rockets that can take us to Mars.
Yeah.
Pastors driven by the power of religion and how it can change people's lives. And so I'm thinking to myself, what is the power that drives me? Like, what is exciting? Like, what could I see myself dedicating my life to? And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, behind every one of those things is a human being. And if I can dedicate my life to understanding human beings and the way that they work, that would be a life worth living. And so ever since then, when people ask me, it's really, I'm not a counselor first. I'm curious first, and I want to know what it means to be alive. I want to know what it means to be a human. And I have found the greatest outlet for that adventure, for that curiosity through psychology. And that's why I've dabbled into so many other things besides just counseling. Because a lot of therapists, they're like, I want to be a counselor. I want to help people.
Mhm.
And I just had a whole bunch of interviews with students for the upcoming semester so they can be interns. And they all
Mhm.
tell me the same thing. I'm like, why do you want to be a counselor? They're like, I want to help people. I'm like, that's a terrible answer. They're like, what? They're like, ah, I'm failing this interview. I'm like, no, no, no. Everybody says help, and that's fine.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I was like, but think about it. If your motivation is to help people, helping people is not a bad thing. But that motivation is inherently codependent. Because if I'm motivated by helping somebody else, if that person doesn't start to get better, I could become very bitter and toxic and frustrated and angry with my client because my motivation is outside of me. But when my motivation is curiosity and I just want to understand the power of the human mind, nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can rob me of my motivation. And so that was something I am so thankful to have the foundation in philosophy to understand. And that's what's driven my journey ever since then.
Ugh, I love that, and I love that you said the curiosity because that's what so much
Mm,
I'm a self-worth coach, and so much of it is curiosity, just asking people questions that are gonna get them to become aware of what's blocking them or keeping them stuck or something, because it's not I'm not an expert. I'm just the conversation is kind of the change agent where they're like, "Oh my god, I never have been asked that, or I never thought of that," and it's like, "Bing." And I love how you said, like, saying to help, because I'm guilty of that. I say I wanna help other people, but you're right, if that's contingent and you're like, "Well, this client isn't doing anything, I must have what did I do? I must suck." That's not right.
yeah. And that's where it can get so man, so tricky because yes, of course I help people. Like I've never met somebody that I wasn't able to help. But help is a byproduct of my curiosity and care. Like I genuinely want to empathize with this other human being and understand what it must be like to live life in their shoes.
Yep.
And through that genuine, unconditional love and curiosity for another person's experience, the byproduct is help. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like I am an expert on some things, but you're the expert on your life.
Yep.
So let me use what I know and listen to your story, and together we'll just explore what our opportunities are here. And in the end, it's up to you, right? I'm not gonna be upset with you if you don't do this or don't do that, right? And so many, gosh, I'm so glad that we're in a time where mental health care and counseling is way more accepted than it ever has been. But at the same time, there are many therapists that I talk to and many clients who come to me who talk about horror stories from their therapist. And so I just encourage it and find the right one.
Yep.
If someone's not working out for you, that's a-okay, right? You got to
Mhm.
find somebody who can really care and understand you as a human being. And that's paramount.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, to give this analogy, maybe you had a boyfriend or you went on a date 2 times and you realize, "Okay, that's not the person for me that I wanna continue dating." I just know therapy, sometimes it's hard. There's a process to go through. So then you're like, if one
Yeah,
didn't work out, then you're like, "Well, I don't wanna go through this whole process again." But you should, if you, want the help and need the help, you should not give up just because one didn't work out. You should absolutely go and try to see who else you vibe with, for a lack of
for
better
sure.
words.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, you want to get into some dreams, talk about dreams?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. First thing I want to ask you is, we're going to really dissect dreams. So, what is happening when you are dreaming? What's going on?
Mm. So the brain is really trying to accomplish two basic functions when you're sleeping, right? And for a long time in science, we believed that you only dream in REM sleep, but we've come to discover that you actually dream in every phase of sleep, um, which
Okay.
is very exciting. And actually, different phases of sleep accomplish different tasks a little bit more than others, but that's for a deeper, heavier topic to discuss. But at its core, sleep is trying to do two things. One, create new neural connections, right? Come up with new ideas, create new, connections inside the brain. And then two, deepen existing connections. So you're creating new ones and getting better at the stuff that you already know. And so the byproduct of that is dreams, right? So you're coming up with new ideas and you're getting better at the stuff that you already know. And that's why some dreams you'll be back at work, which is frustrating because you get off of work and you go to bed and you're like, oh, great, finally rest. I'm back in my office. This is miserable.
Right.
Uh, but what your brain is doing is it's rehearsing your day so it can get better at your job and better at your tasks. It's deepening those neural pathways. And then some other dreams, it's just like, well, why was there a puppy dog riding a unicorn through the ocean being chased by a shark? That doesn't make any sense. Well, because your brain is coming up with new connections. It's like, well, I've never thought about a puppy dog riding a unicorn. I wonder what that would be like. And so it's coming up with these new ideas. And as silly as it may seem with the visuals that you get from it, it actually is very helpful in processing your emotions and creating some greater plasticity in your brain.
Okay. You just blew my mind for the fact I'm literally reading the book Rewire Your Brain by John B. Arden.
Okay, okay.
Great book, but nowhere has he meant nowhere have I taught like neuroscience, and maybe I just haven't delved that much into it. Have they said that this is what's happening? Because I'm like, how do I rewire my brain? How do I rewire my brain? I didn't even
Go to bed.
realize. Why has
That's the
nobody
best
said
way.
that?
I know it's freaking miserable, right? It's like, oh my gosh, where is this information? And that's my passion, right? It's like it's so simple. It's like we just need to talk about it.
Holy crap. Okay.
Man,
So
a great book. A great book. When Brains Dream. When
when
Brains Dream
brain
is a great
uh,
great book. It's so filled with science and really some dream books can get very metaphysical and
mhm,
almost parapsychological.
okay.
But When Brains Dream is all like peer reviewed, research based. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I recommend anybody start there when you're
Okay.
talking about dreams. Yeah, and that's what they'll tell you.
Okay. Perfect. Woohoo. I'm glad we already learned this. So then
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit. I haven't talked too much about this. What is your subconscious mind? How can we break that down for our listeners?
Oh, again, super simple. The basic concept is easy here. You have two parts of your brain. I mean, you have many parts of your brain, but I'm going to simplify and say two because I can count that high.
Mhm.
You've got your prefrontal cortex, right, which is right in front of your eyeballs, right above your eyeballs, and it wraps around the top of your head just a little bit.
Okay.
Now, in Western culture, we really love the conscious brain. We love our prefrontal lobes because they do all of the science and analytical thinking and logic and language. And we spend a lot of time in education focusing on that part of the brain. But believe it or not, that's really about 12% of brain matter. You have another 88% of your brain, which is not under your conscious control. Right now, as you're listening to this podcast, your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, your stomach is digesting the food that hopefully you had for breakfast because you cared for yourself and are a good human being trying to live a happy, healthy life. But you're not consciously doing that; it's just happening.
Yep.
That's all we mean when we say unconscious. It's not metaphysical. It's not spiritual. I mean, if you believe in that, I love that for you. But it's just all of these parts of your brain that are happening automatically. Now, that includes your amygdala, which is your emotions, your hippocampus, which is your memories, right? Your corpus callosum, which is the two parts of your brain are connecting in that area so they can communicate one with another. These are all firing on their own. Now, when you go to sleep, those are the parts of the brain that stay active. When you're sleeping,
Mm,
your prefrontal cortex turns off. Those other parts, the unconscious parts, the 88%, are what are kind of still chewing and moving and thinking and processing when you're sleeping. And that's where all of this dream content comes from. And it's really, I mean, think about it, 88%. That's really what drives who you are, the decisions that you make. And so if we can understand what that part of your brain is doing, and especially the language that it speaks, oh my gosh, unstoppable.
okay. I mean, I already knew the subconscious stuff like a lot, but clearly I'm asking for my
Mm,
listeners. And I love how you said like it doesn't have to be a spiritual thing because it does exist. There is like science and stuff. We can take it however we want to, but that's the answer
right.
with the brain.
Yeah, take that as deep as you want to go. Like, clearly if you believe in metaphysics, that would be the part of the brain that spirituality and metaphysics connects to, right?
Yep.
If you don't, That's fine
That's
too. We
okay
know
too.
that the personality lives inside the unconscious, right? And even greater than that, on a very primal level, we know that your amygdala lives inside your unconscious, and that's where your emotions are. So all of that processing happens in the subconscious mind.
Whether you like it or not, damn it.
Yeah, take it as far as you want, but that's how it goes.
Right.
That's the truth of it.
Okay. So I watched a whole bunch of your TikTok videos, of course.
Oh,
So one of the first
flattered.
things I know, you like seriously, you do awesome. Your videos are so engaging. I'm like, take notes. How did he just do that?
I feel like TikTok is a bad relationship, right? It like gives me a bunch of views and then it's like, just kidding, you're not relevant anymore. And so it's like this toxic relationship with TikTok. So I appreciate the kind words
Yes,
because I'm over here like,
what's
oh
happening?
man, it was great to be famous once, now I'm done. That's like,
Oh, those
uh,
algorithms, they can go climb up a rope. Okay.
yeah.
So something that you said in one of your TikToks was every dream that you remember is a sign from your subconscious.
Yes.
So can you dissect that a little bit more? Because now listeners might be being like, oh God, what was my dream last night? Do I remember it? Do I not remember it? Because that's what I did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's okay. Good point. Good topic to bring up. So there's two levels to that. Of course, TikTok is very short, and attention spans on TikTok are very short. So, yes, every dream, the classic saying, like the killer quote on TikTok is, "If you remember your dreams, it wasn't a dream, it was a message." And you see that quote repeated time and time again because it's catchy. It's a good hook. And so there is two levels to that. Yes, every dream that you remember is a message. However, um, if you don't have a dream, quote unquote, it's not because you didn't dream. It's because you didn't remember it when you woke up. And that's very typical for us. If you jump on your phone right when you wake up out of bed, or in my case, you wake up to a screaming baby who needs your immediate attention, you don't really have a lot of time to sit there, remember, and self reflect on the dream.
Yeah.
Um, and so when that happens, you just don't remember it because, again, the prefrontal cortex is what sort of tags our memories as important and then stores them in the hippocampus. And so if you wake up, your prefrontal cortex is still turning on. And
Mm.
so it is very difficult to bring with you those memories from sleep, tag them as important as the prefrontal cortex turns on, and then maybe write them down in a journal so you can reflect on them later. Most people are just way too busy or just don't prioritize their mental health in that way. So every dream, regardless of if you remember it or not, is a message. But the question for you is, will you take the time and really gather just the treasure that is what your mind is telling you while you sleep, or will you just be rushed and busy and not prioritize those messages?
Mm, that's so good. I have heard, don't
Mm,
ask me who, but when I first wake up, I never get on my phone except for literally to turn off my alarm. And then I wake up and I let my puppy dog out, but then I come back in bed and I do my affirmations, but I sometimes will just sit there and be quiet because I've heard that like the first 5 to 10 minutes you are still waking up, your brain is still in the theta state. So this
mhm.
stuff can like come to you more. Is that what I'm understanding you're kind of saying? Like it's potential you could remember your dreams if you kind of sit.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of like what you talk about with mindset, it's about intention, right? So if you sit there and you're like, every morning, regardless of what happens, I'm going to write down something in my dream journal. And so if you wake up and you're like, I don't remember anything, be like, okay, last night I didn't remember any dreams, or I just dreamed darkness. That's great. But
Mm,
you get into that habit of writing that down each morning, your mind's going to be like, oh, well, Melissa really cares about her dreams. I'll start letting her remember those, and your mind starts to work with you. So that's always my number one recommendation is just keep a journal. If it's on your phone, that's great. I mean, I don't blue light from your phones is a whole thing, but
right.
I'd rather you sit and self-reflect and journal one way or another. I mean, if you can get some pen and paper, that's even better. But the point is just taking some time for yourself and listening to what your mind has to say.
Okay. I want to start making a dream journal and it's because you did say that. Like if you tell your subconscious mind, it will listen to you and it will start making that a thing.
Yeah.
I saw another video that kind of said the same thing. He's like, right before you go to bed, ask your subconscious something or like give it a task and you could get the answer. And that could maybe be like in the dream, you could have the answer.
Oh yeah, this was they've been doing this for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So back in the days of Saint Valentine, right? Uh young women who wanted to get married. This was very popular. It was very misogynistic culture, but we'll forget about that for a
Yeah.
moment. But young women who were very interested in getting married would think about marriage and think about, getting married and the future that they wanted. And
Right.
they would hold a bay leaf as they did this. And then they would put that bay leaf under their pillow. And the idea was when you went to sleep, after putting that bay leaf under your pillow, you would dream about the person you were supposed to marry, your true love. Right. And so, you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, I knew it was Steven the whole time.
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
But if you think about the psychology of it, it's like, oh, you were really setting intention, not only just thinking about the future that you wanted, but you were doing a physical activity that was getting your mindset right for dreaming about what you want. And so, of course, when you go to sleep, your mind's like, who would be a great potential partner? And it just honestly tells you without judgment who it thinks at that time would be a great partner. Now, maybe Steven's not a nice person and you shouldn't marry him, but
Right.
that was what was happening when you slept and when you dreamt after setting that intention for bed.
And it could have been like not a bay leaf and it could have been like a flower and the same thing could have happened. It's
Yeah, it
just
could have been
about the
could have been
intention.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, try it out tomorrow
Yeah.
night, right? Do you got a question, right? Take a little token or a totem, put it under your pillow, think about what it is that you're really struggling with in your life and see what your dreams have to tell you. It's a very effective tool, and we know from psychology why it works.
Yeah. So I want to share a little story of what happened to me. And kind of, I think this is what happened. A couple years ago, I started my podcast in 2020. And
Mm,
somewhere along the way, I started getting just, I don't want to say bombarded, but I get pitched a lot for people to be on my podcast. And it's me,
mm,
little old me, literally doing my editing, my pitching, my finding, whatever. So I can't keep up with the emails. And then I
it's a
started
lot.
having like this guilty conscience, like, oh my God, like I can't have everybody on my podcast that wants to be on my podcast. What do I do? In the middle of the night, probably around 3 o'clock in the morning, I then later woke up and like I had the answer of, well, Melissa, who says you have to have everybody on your podcast? Like, this is your podcast. You get to say, like, what if you just don't stress about that and it's you're in control? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, thank you.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things come to us. And the reason they come to us in dreams is because, gosh, we're so stressed all the time and we're so critical and judgmental. And all of that criticism and judgment lives inside of that conscious brain. And so when you finally get the sweet relief of sleep and you get to turn off that conscious brain, you can really process the troubles that you're going through without the judgment and criticism. And so, it's like brainstorming sessions. If you have a
Yeah.
team and you want to have a good brainstorming session, that is not the time for judgment. Every idea is a good idea. Write them all down. Doesn't matter how crazy, zany, off the wall, whatever it is, just put it out there. It's like having a brainstorming session with yourself while
Yeah.
you sleep because the judgment is suspended. And so, of course, you seem like a nice person to me, Melissa. And so, of course, you want to make everybody happy and have them on the podcast. But then when you let go of that social pressure that lives inside of your conscious mind and you go to sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night with like, oh, well, I don't have to make everybody happy. It's my podcast. And
Yeah.
I have a responsibility to my listeners to have on people that are going to better their lives. They're trusting me with their precious resource of attention.
Yeah. So true. It was
Hmm.
now like I always get so excited. I'm like, what other messages are gonna come to me? I say 3 a.m. That just seems to be the time that it's happening around that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. First of all, we're gonna start going into talking about different scenarios that people dream and what that really means because I
Mm,
just love this. Then at the end, I did have a couple of friends on Facebook want you to interpret their dreams too. Just a very easy thing, but I just wanted to kind of like maybe name them. So if they're listening, they're like, oh my God, she asked the question. Um,
sounds fun. Sounds fun.
So, would you rather me just go down the list because I kind of just jotted things down, or would you like to go over the highlight of some common ones that people dream about and are always asking you about? I'm going to let you choose.
Ooh. Let's do a couple really common ones,
Let's do it.
right? And then we can get into some specific ones. You can like see how a whole dream interpretation goes, right?
Okay.
Um, so overwhelmingly, what people dream about when they sleep, and I've gotten the wonderful opportunity of having a lot of dream data. I get a lot of people's comments, and I've even done some projects where I've gotten to see, just a lot of data about dreams. Overwhelmingly, people dream about relationships. Now that could be romantic, that could be friendship, that could be family, but relationships, especially within the unconscious mind, are such a huge priority. And so I'm sure that many of them on your list are: what does it mean if I dream about my ex? What does it mean if I dream about my crush? What does it mean if I dream about a loved one who's passed away? Boom, 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 boom. I get those 100 times a week.
Okay.
What's happening is, again, your brain's trying to process those relationships because relationships as human beings are incredibly important to us.
Mhm.
So for example, right, if you dream about your ex, that's a really common one. That is a very significant part of our life, our past relationships. So it can be a couple things, but your mind is trying to look for answers from your past experiences about what you should do next. Now, that could be because you have baggage from your ex. That could be because you just started a new relationship and you're thinking about your ex because your mind is like, well, man, our last relationship really didn't work out so well. We want to make sure that we don't repeat that mistake. So your mind's like reviewing the footage, right? It's like, let's do a replay on the field of what happened last time and look out for those warning signs this time so we don't get our feelings hurt. And so that's why that will come back into your brain.
Okay.
And you have to understand that dreams very much are not literal. So oftentimes people dream about having sex with their ex and be like, oh, but they were so toxic. Like, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Your mind is remembering the connection and remembering what that was like. So that way you can be more informed moving forward. So don't take it too literal. It's not a bad thing. Your mind is trying to help you here, not be an asshole.
Okay. You said something very interesting.
Mm,
It's only dreams in your subconscious mind only have the past to draw from. Like it's not going to try to well, I guess it is trying to help you with the future, but it can't
of
tell
course.
you what's going to happen in the future.
It can make predictions, but only in the same way that like a financial analyst will make predictions, right?
Because of the
They've got a lot
past.
of history, they've got a lot of data, and they're like, well, the market's looking like this, and it's a bad time to buy a house, right? A financial analyst will tell you that. They don't, I mean, that financial analyst isn't a fortune teller. They don't
Right.
know what's going to happen, but they've got a pretty good hunch, right?
Okay.
Your brain's the same way. It's like, well, I don't know how this relationship's going to work out, but I've been through relationships before, and this one's smelling kind of fishy. So it's not feeling good. So you might have a dream about breaking up,
Okay.
right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, my brain knows, even though I don't want to admit while I'm awake, my sleeping brain, who's not going to pass judgment, says, honey buns, it ain't looking good. So there'll
Oh my
be
god.
that. Now there are well, okay, so I should clarify that. There have been no good research projects done on people
Mm.
predicting the future with their dreams.
Okay.
What they have been able to do though is some people are very aware, and so some people will be able to predict earthquakes because of their dreams, because they have, how animals have a sense about natural disasters and they flee the area before something bad happens.
Yeah.
There are some people who have that sense too, but because they're so busy in their waking life, they really don't realize it. They just feel off. And then when they go to sleep, they dream about an earthquake, and they have been able to show some predictions of earthquakes through people, certain people who have this ability in their dreams. So now you can do stuff like that. You
Okay.
may kind of process some subconscious awareness that you didn't know. Let's say that you're in a business meeting, right? At
Mhm.
work, and you're giving a
Mhm.
presentation and you're focused on your presentation, you're kicking ass, you're doing a great job. But you notice that the energy in the room's a little off, right? There's this person over there is kind of making funny eyes at this person, and you never even really thought about it, but your unconscious mind did. And then when you go to sleep, you have a dream about that person getting fired. You wake up next week and they get fired. You were aware of stuff that was happening underneath the surface, and your mind's putting those pieces together. Remember, creating new neural connections. That's the process of
Okay.
dreams. So now that stuff happens, but it's not that we can actually see the future. I mean, I know some people believe in like the astral plane and alternate dimensions of reality. There's been no science to prove that. So I'm not going to tell you that's true. If you
Right.
believe in that, that's great for you. But I'm just going to tell you what we know currently.
Okay. That
Yeah,
makes way more sense. Dreams are mostly drawing off past experiences to give us.
exactly. In order to
Perfect.
kind of help us know what to do next. And so in that process, it'll give us like, hey, we got a pretty good hunch this is going to happen next.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
You said something about the loss of
Yes.
loss of loved ones. Good God. This one's a big one for me because I often dream about my mom. I wouldn't say
Right. You
all the
mentioned.
time, but quite a bit. So what does it mean when you dream about a loved one that has passed?
Yeah, and anybody who's listening who's lost a loved one and then they show up in their dreams, man, my heart goes out to you because it's tough. It's really tough. And then you wake up just sort of heartbroken that they're not still there with you.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they show up and they do weird things, or they're judgmental in your dreams, and it's heartbreaking. Like, oh my gosh, do they really feel that way about me? And you're
Mm,
left with all these questions. Again, let me remind you, dreams speak a different language. They're not literal. And so when we're dreaming about, like I said, having a relationship with our ex, it's not that we want to go back with them. Our mind is just remembering that relationship so we can understand what to do. Same thing happens with loved ones who show up in our dream. Our relationships change us. And so, your mom, your dad changed and shaped who you are as a human being. And so, again, relationships are incredibly important. I
yep.
lost my grandfather not too long ago,
Mm,
and, he shaped me quite a bit. I spent a lot of time with him, and he taught me a bunch of things.
right.
And so in those moments when we're really facing something difficult or we're really struggling with something, the image and the memory of that person who would have been there if they were still alive will come back into our mind and help guide us through what we're facing and give us the advice that they probably would have given us while they were alive. And so it's just what a beautiful resource to draw from. The image of that loved one who lives inside of you still is in there. And when we sleep, we can connect authentically to that memory and that image of them and ask them questions and get advice from them, even though they're still not here.
Yeah.
And then that helps make the right decisions moving forward. And that helps us live happier and more enriched lives. And just how cool is it that those people who loved us, even though they're not physically here, still get the opportunity to speak into and encourage us in our lives through the power of our dreams?
I totally agree. I have always had good dreams when I do get to see my mom, and I'm just so
That's cool.
fortunate. I'm
Yeah,
like, thank you that I got to see her again. Um, yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that because I know that's a big one for people that asked. Now, I hate this one, and I know what you're going to say, but I have to ask my listeners the freaking losing of the teeth. This is the worst dream ever in my eyes.
yep, yeah. Is this video recorded, by the
Yeah.
way? Like,
Yeah.
do you put the video up
Uh
too?
huh. Yep.
Oh my gosh, great. All right, so I actually am wearing my
Oh my
losing
God.
teeth
Yes.
hoodie today, and the spoilers on the back. I'll show you.
Oh my God. Sorry. oh shit. I'm just anxious.
It's an
Okay.
anxiety dream.
Holy
So it's even got little teeth going down the sleeve. So teeth, very very primal, very much a part of just the animal nature of human beings. Teeth are strength, right? We
mm,
we take a bite out of our food, we defend ourselves, we protect ourselves with our teeth. And so, it's a metaphor here. Again, once you learn the language of dreams and you know how to speak it, these things become obvious. Teeth are strength. They're what allow us to take a bite out of life's problems. And so if your teeth are falling out, you're feeling weak, you're feeling ineffective, you're feeling like you can't break down life's problems into bite-sized pieces. And so your teeth fall out. You're stressed. You need a break.
okay. So the next time I have a dream about losing my teeth, I'm just going to be like, I'm taking today off. My dream said so.
Yeah, or have more confidence in yourself, or whatever it is. But your dreams are telling you something. There's something about the way that you're thinking about yourself or facing the problem that's just not working out for you. And so it's like, have that confidence, trust your strength,
Okay.
take a bite out of it. You can do it.
I love it. And I love the
Yeah.
analogies. I love the analogies.
Once you get it, it's so cool. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, of course that's what that means. That makes sense.
Right. Exactly. You're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Does that book that you said, the whatever one you said? Oh, when brains dream, does it give a lot of these interpretations or no?
No, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
It's the sciencey part.
Ah,
So,
okay.
if you want a good book of interpretations, well, a couple things. I do have a Discord server that has an actual AI dream interpreter in it. So if you want to join my free Discord
Oh my
server
God.
and
Okay.
ask the AI your dream questions, hop on in. I'm in there daily talking with my folks about what's going on. But also I've got a book list. So if you go to my website, lionmentalhealth.com,
Yeah.
there's a free PDF download for the top books that I recommend. And some of those do have like this list of interpretations in them. So that would be the best
Perfect.
way. I mean, I could spend all day talking about each and every one of them, but
Yeah,
that would
no,
take forever.
that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad I asked then. So now I can go look at that.
That's the spot.
Yeah. Okay. Falling. What happens when we are falling in our dreams?
Ooh, yes. Good one. So this enters into I actually have 4 categories of dreams. I haven't read this anywhere. This is a Jesse Lyon original. I should probably put it in a book one day, but you're getting it raw here today on the podcast. There's 4 types of dreams. And this is just for my own sort of sanity here. You've
Yeah.
got wish fulfillment dreams, which are things that I want. So when you dream about your crush, it just means that you want to be with them. And your mind's trying to rehearse, like, oh man, what would I say? What would I do? How would it be if I was with my crush? Your mind's trying to envision the future that you'd want. So you're dreaming about them. That's a
Yeah.
wish fulfillment dream. You're fulfilling a wish while you sleep that you haven't fulfilled in your waking life yet.
Yeah.
Then you've got venting dreams. That's another category. Venting dreams are they're all the nightmares. They're all the bad ones. That's all the bad dreams are inventing. And what's happening in venting dreams is your mind is actually trying to release unprocessed emotions. So the teeth falling out dream, you are stressed and you were not able to relieve that stress while you were awake. You are still stressed going to bed. And so your mind is actually trying to let go of that stress by having these nightmarish dreams. That's why one of the very first indicators of PTSD is actually nightmares. Before any of the other symptoms show up, you have PTSD nightmares. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it with my work as a mental health counselor and a trauma therapist. When you pay attention to the dreams, you can catch PTSD before any other symptoms because the mind is trying to release that trauma through the dreams. That's what it's trying to do. It's venting out the unprocessed emotions.
Okay.
So that's category 2. We could circle back around to that because I
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
eyes light up
Yeah.
a little bit. And then you've got physical dreams, right? And physical dreams are actually the mind incorporating and interpreting body sensations, right? So you ever heard of a fever dream, right? We've all heard that
Yep.
term.
Yep.
A fever dream is usually very bizarre because your body feels bizarre. Your body is literally on fire, right? You've got 102-degree fever, and you're sleeping and your mind's like, "Ooh, we don't feel right. Something's wrong." And so you'll have dreams about like being boiled alive or like, going through a volcano, or walking through fire, whatever it is, because your body's literally hot. And so your mind is saying, oh, this is what's happening in our body. Coincidentally, many people, documented cases, have actually been able to predict that they have cancer because they have had some of these physical dreams. So there's a really great example of somebody who dreamed about pomegranates.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, I don't know, why am I dreaming about pomegranates? When you cut a pomegranate open, it's got all those little clusters inside of it, right?
Mm.
And so this person found out they started having dreams about pomegranates because they had breast cancer. And so the little clumps in there looked like the breast tissue and the cancer that was around them. So their body was actually speaking to them through their dreams.
Wow.
Falling falls into this category, pun intended. Falling can be emotional and it can be venting about not achieving your goals. Life feels out of control. You're in free fall. You had your sights set on the moon and you didn't quite reach it. And so you're falling back down to earth. Your plans may have been a little unrealistic, ungrounded. And so now life is kind of pulling you back down to the ground, unfortunate as they may be. But it can also be a physical dream because that falling sensation can happen with people who have hypoglycemia, diabetes, or blood sugar problems. Can also happen with hypertension or blood pressure. The body literally feels a sensation of falling because something's not right. Now, maybe, glucose level problems, maybe, blood pressure problems. And so if you're having dreams that are very physically intense like that, especially falling, you want to go talk with your doctor and, just make sure that you're doing okay because your mind may be trying to communicate something wrong with the body while
Right.
you sleep.
Okay. What's the fourth one?
The fourth one's insight dreams, right? So these are some of the most fun. I'm obviously always on TikTok, and Charlie Puth is always posting about how he will come up with a new song, a new sound inside of his dreams. And so he goes to sleep. He doesn't have any stress, right? He's sleeping. He doesn't have any other pressures around him, no fans, no paparazzi, nobody asking him questions. And so his mind just gets to have fun coming up with
Mm,
new ideas. And so he will often come up with new songs in his dreams. Those are insight dreams. Google was an insight dream. Gosh, there's so many others. Like, yeah,
oh my
uh,
God.
lot of Apple stuff, insight dreams, dreaming about these things, coming up with new ideas, and then making them in the waking world.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of things like that. Even scientifically, we came up like human beings, we came up with the carbon ring. The way that
Mm.
these atoms stack into a circle was because the scientist who was researching it at the time just couldn't figure it out. Went to sleep and had a dream about a snake eating its tail.
Yes, yes, yes. I listen. They gave that example either in The Power of the Subconscious Mind,
Yeah.
or I think it's that book, or Dr. Bradley Nelson maybe gave that example in The Emotion Code, but I don't think it is. I think it's the first book. Because I'm like, that
Hmm.
sounds familiar. Wow.
Yeah, so those are inside dreams. So those are the four. They all fit into one of those
Yeah.
categories, and that just helps kind of understand like those basic categories. I find are really helpful for me because it's an easy way to kind of understand the intention. Like I may not understand all the symbols
Hmm.
sometimes because I have my own blind spots looking at myself, and
Right.
we all do. But if I can know
Yes.
what category this falls into, I can understand. Okay, this is what my brain's trying to do, so at least gives me a good direction to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, since you know all of this stuff, do
Mm.
you still like have a variety of these different dreams, or do you find like, no, mine are pretty like this category? Or you still
Uh,
dream in every different ones?
Yeah, no, I dream in all the different ones.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I'm I mean, some happen more than others. Venting dreams are the easiest to remember because they're usually the most emotionally intense,
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, there's differences in which ones are more likely to be remembered, but I dream in all of them. Yeah, I'll come up with
Okay.
new ideas, I'll process stuff, I'll grant my wishes, A lot of sexual dreams are that way, wish fulfillment, right? It's like, phew, man, I would really love some human skin to skin connection right now. A lot of people come into my comments like, what does it mean I had, relationships with this person? I'm like, well, it probably means you just need to take some time to relax and enjoy some human connection, girl. Listen.
Oh my god. I love it. I wanted to ask you really quick. Are you familiar with Paris Hilton and like how bad that she had nightmares like for years and years and years and years on end?
Ooh, I mean, everybody knows Paris Hilton, but I don't know if I've done a deep dive into her nightmare history. No.
Yeah, she it was in her documentary a couple years ago, but well, she had a lot of trauma happen to her when she was
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
and from like that age until however old she was a couple years ago, she literally could not fall asleep at night because she was so scared she was going to have this reoccurring nightmare that she's had for like ever and ever. It'll probably talk about it on like Google, but I think it was from the like the boarding school that she went to and she got sexually
Phew.
abused and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, she could not go to sleep, and like clearly none of us knew this until this documentary came out, and I'm like,
Hmm.
holy crap. I have never had nightmares like that, thank God, but I know they can be just relentless, and I just can't
Yeah.
imagine having that happen night after night, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this is where, sort of my clinical experience kind of comes in. It's
Ugh.
like, that's a lot of what I deal with interpreting dreams online is fun. we're doing it for entertainment, right? None of the things
Mhm.
we're talking about here are a substitute for your own counseling or a substitute for a diagnosis, of
Nope.
course, right? And same thing with social media. But when it does actually come into my office as a licensed medical professional, which I am, we start to get into those really heavy topics like trauma, anxiety, depression. And they're tough. They're really, really tough because the mind is just searching for answers. And so it starts to replay that trauma over and over and over again, just looking for a way out. And
Mm.
that's why I really encourage people to go talk with a counselor because um, our mind is incredibly resilient and incredibly powerful, but sometimes it gets stuck. And in a situation like a traumatic situation, it may just be more than we can deal with on our own. The mind is looking for answers as to what sense do I make of this awful experience?
Yeah.
And until we have the help of a licensed and caring professional, our mind may get stuck inside of a loop, just replaying that over and over again and reinforcing those negative suggestions until we have a good therapist come alongside and show us really the way out.
Okay. Do you ask your clients that have went through trauma, like, what kind of dreams do you have? Like, is that one of your questions that you ask them to see like what might be coming up for them? Or are they already telling you like, I'm having a nightmare every night. Like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah, so I obviously let my clients sort of tell me what they're the most interested in discussing, right?
Okay.
I'm interested in dreams, but that doesn't mean that everybody's interested in dreams who comes into my office.
Okay.
So to a greater or lesser extent, we may discuss dreams. However, I do ask everybody because traumatic nightmares are one of the diagnostic criteria for PTSD. So I do ask that just as a normal part of screening and diagnosis. You
Okay.
have to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm like, wait, I, I bet he'll probably ask that. I mean, it's like a whole nother like toolbox that you have. The
Oh
fact that
yeah,
you're a dream interpreter, I think it's incredible,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and it goes right alongside with the hypnotherapy too. I mean, one
Yep.
of the most powerful tools for trauma recovery that I've ever experienced.
Yep. That's what I did with my a girlfriend of mine. Well, I didn't know her at the time, but she did hypnotherapy and we did a live session like on the podcast episode
Nice.
and it was amazing. Amazing. And at first like once again, before you think of like hypnosis, it sounds scary and it's really like not. Like you don't have some like voodoo power over me. I saw a really cool video yesterday. It's almost to say like they said it's you having power over yourself just in a relaxed state is kind of like
hmm
how they described hypnosis. And so I was like, I'm all for it. That doesn't sound scary at all. I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I talk about it is just to be honest, we're just recreating the dream state while you're awake. I mean, that's really what it is. And so
Yeah.
the two greatest powers of dreams are creating new connections and deepening existing ones. Well, we can do the same thing with hypnosis. I can
Yep.
get you into a similar type of dream state through my words and through hypnotherapy that you would if you went to bed. And so not only can we get into that really recuperative state, but I can guide your imagery and your dream as we're talking through the hypnotherapy session. So it's really cool. Yeah.
Okay. It's all making more sense now. This is why I
It's all
love
coming together.
it really is. Like this is why I love just getting to learn more and more each time I get to talk to an expert. I'm like, oh, okay. Um,
Cool.
all right. Well, we'll spend the last couple minutes with these questions that some of my friends had. Now, we did already answer, when you're past one when they come into your dream. So we've already answered that. I have a friend that says she has crazy dreams every single night that has involved floods of all kinds, roads being
Oh,
flooded, house being flooded, water
oh
rising
yeah.
quickly. What does that mean?
Water is overwhelmingly an emotional symbol, right? So water represents your emotions. Now, depending on the type of water, it can be different levels of emotions, right? So like if you're dreaming about being, in rain, right? It could
Hmm.
be about emotional cleansing. That rain, the water of your emotions comes and washes you clean. If you're dreaming about like a pool can
Hmm.
be about emotional self-reflection, like a reflecting pond. You think about like the Washington Monument, right?
Yep.
Um, but floods mean that you're being overwhelmed with emotions, right? Your emotions feel out of control, like they're going to wash you away, right? And so it depends on the size of the flood too. Some people tell me about tsunami dreams, just this massive wall of water. And it's like, oh my gosh, your emotions must feel really intense for you right now. And it's like it's going to crush everything that you've built in your life.
Right.
So flood dreams, feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed by your emotions. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. Now
Yeah.
this one might be hard to explain. So my friend Jamie says that she sees and hears herself saying, "Jamie, wake up. Jamie, wake up," over and over until she
Mm.
actually does wake up in real life. She says it feels like my dream self has a fear that it's trying to protect my real self from. So I guess the question is, what is happening when your dream self is like telling you to wake up, wake up, wake up?
Yeah, so I'd want to ask a couple follow-up questions if Jamie were here, but I'll tell you
Okay.
both anyways, because there's two answers in my head, and so I'd want to ask some questions to make sure I'm going down the right path.
Okay.
One is we got to talk about sleep paralysis. There are
Mm.
some parasomnias that we run into as a dream interpreter and in our mental health. And so somebody who has like a very poor sleep pattern, right? Maybe they got a bad circadian rhythm, maybe they're not getting enough sleep, or maybe they've got some physical problems that kind of contribute to sleep paralysis. Oftentimes we can hear voices, see things in our room, and feel paralyzed as we are waking up. And that's part of sleep paralysis, the parasomnia. And I talk about that a whole bunch. You can Google it and look it up. So that
Okay.
would be my first thought is like, let's make sure that it's not a physical thing, right? You
Okay.
may be experiencing some sleep paralysis, which there are definitely some easy things that you can do to help that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, the second thing, let's say it's not physical at all, like it has nothing to do with sleep paralysis, it's totally an emotional symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anytime we're hearing our name inside of a dream, our name represents really our identity and our character, right? So oftentimes that name can be us reflecting on who we are, right? We define who we are by our name. And so seeing your name written, hearing your name being called inside of a dream can be a call to reflect on your identity. Maybe it's time to change some things about yourself, or maybe you're in a time of really changing your identity. I mean, gosh, for me, I became a dad 8 months ago. Talk about an identity flip. I went from, just being goofy old me to now there's life in the world because of things that I did. Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, it's too much pressure. So real change in my identity. So Jamie, wake up, maybe about identity, and then wake up, and maybe about, hey, maybe you need to wake up to some new parts of your identity. Right. So we
Mm.
kind of take a more metaphorical and a more emotional approach to that phrase that's being said in the dream.
Okay. Perfect. I love it. I
Yeah.
hope you guys are enjoying all this. I have two more things, two more
Okay, let's do
questions,
it.
and then we'll wrap up.
All right.
So I have a friend that her son passed away in 2020. He was also
Mm.
20. But she often dreams of him when he's a little boy. So why is he always young in her dreams and not the actual age that he died at?
I mean, there could be a number of reasons for that, but I'd
Okay.
say that's probably the time that she felt the most connected with him, the time that she missed him the most. You know, I love my grandma and she's passed now, but um my grandma would always buy me a Christmas gift each year. But she was never really able to remember that I got older each year. So she'd buy me like 5-year-old coloring books when I was 15. And I love my grandma. It was so sweet and it still meant
Yeah.
the world to me. But in her head, I was a different age than I physically was. And that happens a lot with parents,
Yeah.
like gosh, even my mom would be like, ah, man, I just feel like it was yesterday. You were 7 years old and running around and making tree forts in the backyard. And so in her head, in her unconscious mind, when she thinks Jesse, she may think about me as a child more than she thinks about the adult me now. And that
Mm,
makes sense because what's the time that my mother was the most connected with me? Not me at 30. I'm living my own life now. She was the
right.
most connected with me when I was probably in elementary school. And
Yeah.
so that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, last one. I rarely remember my dreams. Is there something I can do to help make them more memorable?
Boom, dream journal. Absolutely. Write it down. Spend some time away from the phone when you wake up in the morning and just self-reflect. Every time that you sleep, you dream. And we know that from the science. So it's not a lack of dreaming, it's a lack of memory recall from the dreaming. And so if you can practice that, get good sleep, right? Prioritize your sleep, get enough sleep. That's going to really help you start to recall these dreams. Because if you're getting fragmented sleep, you're only sleeping like 5 hours, 6 hours. You need 7 minimum, 8 ideal, 9 is good. Um, during that time that you go to bed, and it needs to be consistent times. And if you start to do that, you'll start to remember your dreams much more because you're setting that intention, you're prioritizing your health. and those things will just come back to your mind. But if it's all scattered and you're going to
Right.
sleep here, you're going to sleep there, you're having a couple drinks before bed, you're not going to remember your dreams. It's too chaotic inside your mind to really bring back what happened during your sleep.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
That was awesome. All right. Where can people find out more about you and your work and all the amazing stuff that you are doing?
Man, join my Discord server. Check me out, lyonmentalhealth.com. I'm on all the platforms. If it depends on what you're looking for, right? If you want my free PDF guide to the top books that Jesse recommends, because goodness sakes, I've read a lot of them and some of them are garbage. So I did the work for you and I made the top list and they're
Okay.
broken down into categories. So please just go download that free resource for you and look at some of the books. They're really easy to read and some are just simple dream dictionaries. That's at lyonmentalhealth.com, Lyon mentalhealth.com. And if you want a little bit more from me, of course, I'm on all the social media platforms. You can see some really good mental health content on my YouTube channel. But if you want to just say, hey, drop on into my Discord server. The link is still on lyonmentalhealth.com. But that's where the community kind of lives. And we've got like a little chat there. We even do weekly dream share groups where we all just get together and share our dreams and build into one another's lives. So I just want to encourage people to care for their mental health and let them know that they're not alone. So any way that I can do that, I'd love to be there to support you in your journey.
Awesome. And then I will also drop his website because it can all be found there. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Everything can be found on there, even all the social media links. That's the best sort of hub
Perfect.
for all the stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. So that will be in the show notes. And Jesse, before you leave, I asked all of my guests this last question.
Uh
In your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
The bright side of life. Oof. I have a saying for my business. And you know me, I think about things way too much. And so I've always said, when it came to founding my counseling company and my guiding principle, um, the founding idea is acceptance through awareness. And when I think of brighter side, I think about the sun, I think about light, and I think about what that would symbolize inside of a dream. And so if you're dreaming about light and the sun, it's about insight. When light comes in, things become clear. You can see clearly. There's no fear about tripping and stumbling over unknown obstacles in your path. And so that's been my founding mission. And what I'm finding in life is the more that you become aware, the more you can accept reality for what it is and live peacefully. And so when I'm thinking about the brighter side of life, I'm thinking about the awareness and the light that can come into our lives and how that can lead us to such happiness and then acceptance of other people and even ourselves around us. So I hope that encourages you. But yeah, live on that brighter side of life. It's good.
That's a mic drop.
Boom. On
That
that,
was
I'm out.
that was amazing. Acceptance through awareness, which is something that I am trying to do every single day. So thank you for bringing that to my awareness. I love that that's
Yeah.
your guiding principle.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. This has
Yeah,
been really wonderful. I hope people reach out and connect, and I hope I can be a support and encouragement for you.
perfect. Thank you again, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.